Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Hey, I got my guest on. It is Worship and Wellness, and we are going to be able to have an amazing conversation tonight. We are having some slight technical difficulties, so just let us know if any glitching you guys hear or see it. But I'm excited to have my guest here with us tonight. If you're just joining us, remember this is Worship and Wellness, where we believe in biblical principles with practical steps. And so we are going to have a good conversation about things that oftentimes we talk about, the things that many people try not to talk about. We believe here at Worship and Wellness that it is, in order for us to worship well and be well, we have to address those issues that often are not addressed in a way that we can have some practical steps to live a more better way of living. All right. So we're excited. I'm excited. Tonight I have with me none other than Pastor Valerie and Elder Marlena. I'm excited. I got my sisters with me. I got all my sisters with me. Well, some of them anyway. I'm so glad. How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well. I'm excited to be here, ready to talk about something that I think a lot of people will find relief in at the end of this conversation.
Yes.
More so than the beginning. My objective for being here is to allow women and men and children and teens and all of us in transition to be more comfortable with ourselves, no matter where we are, what we're doing, is to be more comfortable with ourselves and to redefine ourselves by not allowing outsiders to define who we are and what we are and how we think and how we choose to be labeled. So I'm excited about all of that.
Awesome.
That's so good. I mean, just think about even like where we are as and out for those that are a part of FSC, and it's just so befitting in the message about being okay with the areas that you don't like, right? And sometimes the stigma that comes or that people will place on someone with ADHD that they don't want people to know or they don't want to accept it because of that stigma. But even if it's your thorn, be okay with that thorn. Right? Be okay with that. And so I think what you said is so there's a lot of pasta noose in that right there, because we have to get to a place where we're okay right where we are. I see Pastor Connie chiming in. Hey, Pastor Connie chiming on in there. Thank you so much for chiming in. And as you are joining, please make sure you let us know that you're here so we can shout you out. Val, anything you want to chime in? I mean, Marlena took us in already.
Wait a minute, before we get started, I just want to say, shout out to you, Pastor Tanya. If Pastor Tanya find out a condition, she's going to have you on Worship and Wellness.
Just forget about it.
What?
Don't
Can I see you on
about
Monday night?
Get that from Apostle.
Go for it, girl. She will have you. What? You cut your knee. Meet me up on Worship and Wellness.
Meet me and we're going to talk about it. How to bend and keep moving.
And let me say that I have to say I thank God for that word on yesterday, prefacing this about accepting who you are, whether you think it's something you struggle with or not, that was just such a good word, recognizing some of us that have been considered, we consider some things a thorn in the flesh, when real God has made it all a part of who we are. So I thank God for that.
Hey, Mary, we got Mary Brookins on. Hey, sugar. She said, good evening, beautiful ladies. That's Connie said, good evening, ladies. Yeah, no, you're right. I think this is, it's very good. God does all things well. And so, for those that are watching now and will be watching later, I think it's going to be important that we really tackle those hard areas that many of us don't. And I kind of want to start out by saying that, when we think about medication, we think about illnesses and we think about medication, especially in churchdom, we have this tendency to denote, well, I just trust God. I believe God. God will fix it. You don't need medication. Like all of these things that is so counterproductive to the practical piece. Wow. And I wrote down, I said, Jesus is the exact representation of God being of God's being, right? And by healing people, he showed us that God's compassion and his identity as the great physician, as we know Christ to be, who will one day restore all of creation to health, right? And so it's clear that even in Jesus's ministry, he desires that we be healed, that
Yes.
we be whole,
Mhm.
that we be healthy, right?
Right.
And so even to the point that we know that in the Bible there were physicians, right? So why Luke was a physician? Why do we have the tendency to pull away from the area that number one, we identify Christ as the great physician. We know back in those days there were physicians.
Right.
Yet here now in today's world, we see physicians as the, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that, right? And so, I just want to touch on that real quick before we even hit into what ADHD is and your thoughts around that.
Well, I know for me, I'm gonna go back to what that's so great that you brought up the stigma surrounding it. I know for years I tried to just operate in denial, even though I've been. Well, we'll talk more about it, but that early. But just trying to say. I mean, for years, for years I said, in the name of Jesus, I'm healed. I'm not going, and I struggled mentally and struggled functionally. Because there was just some reality that I had to face. Yeah, so it's a shame that we do push away medical science. I look at that as God's grace. Yes, sometimes His healing comes through men and women who are educated to advise us.
That's so good. That's good.
That is so good. I like that. I think that first of all, my experience is somewhat different, well, very different from Pastor Valerie's in that it's so funny. I got diagnosed as an adult. It's very interesting. I noticed these symptoms and a difference in my son from the time he was an infant, 18 months old. And I always read to my kids and played with them. And I could just tell, and in teaching their ABCs and all of these things, I could just tell from the look in his eyes, the look on his face, that he wasn't quote unquote getting it, or he saw something different than what my other kids saw.
Yes, yes.
And I became a great advocate for him, not realizing until I became an adult. I mean, and very recently, like 5 or 6 years ago, that I was diagnosed